Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore. We have been live. Usually I start the show with a little chitter chatter connected with my community, and I was happy to do so. Had a wonderful holiday. I hope you guys did too. But I want to get to this main topic. I want to get into this because this is a complicated one. James Franco had a lot of misconduct allegations thrown at him, and there was a time there he sort of seemed like he was just going to get away with it all. And then the students at his school were like, They pressed charges. They took him to court. And he ended up settling for like 2.4 or over $2 million. Now, does that mean he's guilty? Does that mean he's innocent? It means both parties, clearly wanted to get this over with, for one. Usually when one person pays, it's usually a sign that they want to, move on. If you're innocent, you don't usually want to pay when you're innocent, right? So, a lot of people assumed when I settled, well, Andy, that doesn't mean you were innocent? Well, I can't give you details because the part of my settlement was to not discuss the details of my settlement. But, I was allowed to say I'm happy, and I'm allowed to say that, I was able to provide my evidence and things. So take that as you will. Settlements can sort of be a way to sort of deduce whether someone's innocent or guilty. And it did seem like with James Franco forking out that much money, well, something must have been up, right? So I've been waiting for him to really come forward and address these issues, because what James Franco has been alleged of doing isn't good. It wasn't right. James Franco had a school, and allegedly in that school he was accused of doing classes about sex and stuff. And he addresses that in this new interview, and we're going to go through some of the clips. But I want to sort of do a quick summary of things before we get there, because the accusations were pretty intense. He was also accused. There was a lot of scandals throughout where he was caught. First of all, I got to thank somebody. Tanya just upgraded her membership to Channel Investor. That's the highest tier we got. That is the highest tier we got. Holy moly, Tanya. Thank you so much for your support. To everybody who supports this channel, it's incredible. Not to interrupt the main show, but I always got to support my supporters. And you guys can support this channel if you like my honest coverage and really talking about stuff people don't really want to talk about by hitting that join button. I try to give honest coverage, take all sides if I can, and really give you the real skinny. So let's do that here with James Franco. Because look, I see a lot of people out there who are just immediately ready to just keep throwing them under. Nobody gives an F about what James Franco has to say. He already paid out $2.2 million to his victims in July because they're not just allegations. He did that. Y'all, serious, Miss Jess Cagle, you are trash for giving him and people like him a platform for transparent, self-serving PR. Now, Gabe here, I got to disagree with Gabe here because I've been there. Now, I think James did do things wrong. Like in my case, I settled in things because my allegations, the nasty ones, were false. However, I did consensually flirt with some of my fans. Some of them weren't okay with it and just didn't tell me until they found out a larger false accusation and sort of piled on. So I add that context because I'm going to look at this a little bit differently. I believe cancel culture is a cancer on our society, and it's more than just sort of the cancellation. It's more the culture of, well, what do we do with these people once we push them out? Should they ever have a path back to redemption? Are they allowed to put in the work to change? Can people change? Those are the questions, right? And in each case, this assumption here that nobody gives an F is just complete. You're already wrong right there. Plenty of people give an F. Plenty of people are fans of James Franco, feel bad for James Franco. You don't speak for everyone, Gabe, right out the gate. Now, I agree when you paid out that high, you're clearly up for something. You clearly did something where you're like, I just don't want to take this to court. Clearly, I need to do something. I get that, but I got to applaud Sirius and Mr. Jess Cagle for giving him a chance to address the concerns so we can now evaluate and decide, well, do we like what he said? Do we believe what he said? And that's really what I want to do today is go through these things and sort of figure out, should we forgive him? All right, so there's a bunch of clips here. We're going to play through some of the clips that they did provide us. There's a whole interview. I think you can get it on Apple Podcasts as well as Sirius XM. You can go listen to the Jess Cagle, I think it's Jess Cagle show if you want there. But let's start here.
So why did you want to sit down today? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, in 2018, there were some complaints about me and an article about me, and at that moment, I just thought, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to pause. Did not seem like the right time to say anything. There were people that were upset with me, and I needed to listen.
First of all, I'm going to pause and start because I have to offer commentary on this clip because otherwise I'm just ripping the clip. First off, bravo. 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 Now, I don't know if he means what he's saying in any of this. Let's put that caveat out there. I don't know James Franco. I know I've met Seth Rogan. I liked Seth Rogan. I just did a video calling out Seth Rogan, ironically. But I do know, I've met him. I've worked with him a couple times limitedly. And he's a good guy. I do think he's a good person. Smart, good person. I don't know enough about James Franco. I've met him very far once, and he was studying when I saw, like, he was really into like study. Like he jumped into whatever things he did. And that was always what was weird about Franco. He always did a million things. I don't know what Seth knew. I don't know what everyone knew exactly, but I do know James, people supported him. People knew, and he seemed to be an intense, legitimate guy. Now, what he said there, though, was smart. And it's right. You can immediately be defensive. You can immediately now if something's false, I think it's correct to stand up and speak out immediately and say, well, that's false. But he's acknowledging here I had to listen because clearly something I was doing was upsetting people and I needed to hear it. So that right there, I got to give him at least start the props of like, all right, so far so good.
There's a writer, Damon Young, and he talked about, when something like this happens, like the natural human instinct is to just make it stop. You just want to get out in front of it and whatever you have to do, apologize, get it done. But what that doesn't do is allow you to do the work and to look at what was underneath, like whatever you did, even if it was a gaffe or you said something wrong or whatever, there's probably an iceberg underneath that of behavior, of patterning, of just being blind to yourself that isn't going to just be solved overnight. So
now, really good answer, and he's right. I don't know if I buy him believing that right then and there, because in the moment, it's emotional. You want to defend yourself. There's a lot. I've been in that moment, so I'm speculating. This all sounds like something you say after the fact. This does seem a little coached, like almost too good. However, what he's saying is spot on. And so now seeing that now, I believe him if he's noticing that. I'm glad because I've said that too in my own personal, like, I'm really glad I didn't come forward right away because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to come forward. I needed to atone for some of my own things I did wrong. I needed to hug the cactus, as I call it, as I've learned from others that called it that, and really address it. Why? What is that iceberg underneath? Why are you doing this? Why are we cheating? Why did you need to flirt with your fans? Like what was lacking? Right? All those things are things when you actually do the work and you realize and you do that, you can learn a lot about yourself and you can become better. So far I'm like, all right. It seems like James Franco's saying the right things.
I've just been doing a lot of work, and I guess I'm pretty confident saying like it's 4 years, and I was in recovery before, for substance abuse, and there were some issues that I had to deal with that were also related to addiction, and so I've really used my recovery background to kind of start examining this and changing who I was.
Now, he didn't really answer the question. Why did you decide to speak out now? He gave sort of an answer that was, in my opinion, again, keeping it real. He gave an answer that was pretty much like, well, because I'm better, is what it's to paraphrase it. I put in the work. And to be fair, maybe he's done it. The reality is 4 years is a long time. That is a long time. He will address that a little bit later, but he didn't really answer the question, in my opinion. Also, Caroline Lestraja, thank you. You just upgraded to the next level. Thank you so much for your support. I do interrupt once in a while when our supporters support this stream because that's how we thrive, us creators, independent creators. Don't stigmatize us creators at asking for help because you guys help us because sometimes these platforms don't want to get some of these stories out. We can't talk honestly, so I appreciate all my Planeteers and supporters for all that they do to keep us going. All right, so there's a few more clips here. He gets into the next one here. Let's go here.
Let's go back to the decision that you referenced a minute ago about starting Studio 4. This was one of the promises that was made to prospective students at Studio 4 was, in addition to outstanding teachers, the students will have the opportunity to showcase their talents in front of James Franco. And James will cast roles directly from his classes, will involve his students in a variety of film and art projects. Did you really think that you would be able to give the students the attention that they were expecting?
Fair. I mean, first of all, good question. Good question. And Jess does ask some tougher questions here. Like, he doesn't just let James get away like I feel like Charlemagne did with Travis Scott. He's actually, grilling him a bit more. So I appreciate that. So, and again, I'm going a little out of order here. I'm sorry, it's chronological, but they're talking about this school, and that's where a lot of these accusations came from. But it is beyond even just the allegations. He created a school that sort of prompted, seemed like just a scam. Like, oh, you will see James Franco, and he may cast you in roles. It's kind of a weird promise to make, even beyond sort of the other sketchy allegations. So let's hear what he says here.
I let a lot of people down. I let my students down. I hosted the Oscars. I let them down. I let my coworkers down on my movies. I remember not one set, multiple sets where I would fall asleep between takes. I think on Why Him, it was like this on-set joke, like Bryan Cranston, everyone would come around me as I'm passed out and take photos, and multiple times. So I let everyone down, not just the students. But yes, I was too tired in class. Like I said, I had no business doing it. I was on Broadway. I was teaching at 4 schools in LA. So on Sunday night, we'd do an earlier show. I'd be done at 6. I'd go to the airport, fly, land at midnight. The next day, go from school to go all over LA, teach at the 4 schools, and then get on a plane on Monday night and fly back and do a show on Tuesday. And I was producing and acting in a movie during the day and then did the play at night. Insane person. And one of the early cracks was like, I remember an agent said to me, like, I told him what I was doing, and he's like, is that fun? And that's sort of like before, when like the badge of courage of like, oh, this guy, he can do it all. Like the director of my play, Anna Shapiro, was like, I don't think you're going to be able to teach and do this play. And I was like, I can do it. And then she was like, wow, he can do it. As soon as the agent said, is that fun? It was like, yeah, why am I doing all, what is going on here? So that was it. I didn't stop at that point, but it was an early sort of warning.
So the answer was no, he couldn't. He's owning up the fact that he wasn't doing a lot to help his students or anything beyond that.
The stupidest thing I did, or one of the stupidest things I did at the school, was I called one of my classes, a master class, sex scenes. It was not about sex scenes. I was not teaching people how to do sex scenes or intimate scenes or anything of that nature. It was a provocative title. You know, there's a show on that was just on called The Chair about academia, and in it, like, the cool female teacher that everybody wants to take her class. She has a class called something like Sex and American Literature or something like that. To be provocative and cool, but like they're reading Melville, in the class. That's basically what I was doing.
Do you buy this? I'm out of order. I'm going to get to his sex addiction because he's going to acknowledge he's a sex addict. And I feel like if you're acknowledging that, you should know better that teaching a class where you're offering yourself to your time, access to James Franco, and then teaching a sex scenes class with you, that's more than just provocative, James. Come on.
It should have been called, contemporary romance or something like that. It was a class where they did scenes about whatever, their romances and their, what they go through as young people. So meeting people on, dating apps or breakups or, just a bad date, stuff like that. That's what was being done in that class. It was not sex scenes.
when the lawsuit was filed, the plaintiff's attorneys said this is their assessment.
And good on the interviewer for prodding this, because I'm glad he asked this question.
What happened? He was looking to create a pipeline, James Franco was looking to create a pipeline of young women who would be subjected to his personal and professional sexual exploitation in the name of education. It's obviously very different than what you just told me, but why would someone have at least that perception, and why would they accuse you of that?
Yeah, it's a tough one to answer.
Look, I'll admit, I did sleep with students. I didn't sleep with anybody in that particular class, but over the course of my teaching, I did sleep with students, and that was wrong. But like I said, it's not why I started the school. And I wasn't the person that selected the people to be in the class. So it wasn't a master plan on my part. But yes, there were certain instances where, you know what, I was in a consensual thing with a student, and I shouldn't have been.
I think some people listening to this will say, how could you not see that there would be a power imbalance among a teacher who's not just a teacher, but is James Franco, like a very, very famous, powerful actor and producer, and a student? How did that power imbalance, how were you not aware?
How are you not an idiot? Is this question. It's basically like, how are you so dumb, James Franco, that you didn't realize it was already a problem that you were, James Franco, but now you're their teacher and they're looking up to you, and now you're it's a great question. Also, thank you, MMs became a producer. Woo, woo, woo. And Carlili, thank you so much for becoming a Popcorn Planeteer. You guys are incredible. I'll support you all in a minute. I just want to make sure we get this. Before I want to put a poll up. Do you guys think it's okay for a teacher, like a college ed teacher, should a college professor ever be allowed to consensually sleep with a student? Let's ask yes or no. I'm curious your thoughts on that, because I don't think they should. I don't think they should, personally, but I'm curious where you guys are going to come from that. Is it ever okay? Is there ever an assistive situation? I put the poll up. Let's see what James, though, his answer is.
I suppose at the time, my thinking was, if it's consensual, okay. Of course I knew, I talked to other people, other teachers or whatever, like, yeah, it's probably not a cool thing. At the time, I was not clear-headed, as I've said, so I guess it just comes down to my criteria was like, if this is consensual, like, I think it's cool. We're all adults, so.
I mean, I can see why he his excuse isn't like the worst excuse. It just shows he's ignorant, right, and stupid. Is really what he's showing there. Hold on, how do I close this? It's just a bad look. He doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. And so, but I applaud him for at least acknowledging his ignorance. I applaud him for at least acknowledging, yeah, I did sleep with students. Now, that alone is going to make a lot of you be like, well, I don't like this guy. Screw him, forget him. And that's your right. But he's at least owning up to some terrible things here. And that is, like it or not, that is a first step to, solving your problems, is addressing those concerns. Admitting to things like this it's hard to admit some things like this. In fact, I want to get more in depth
when
with this.
When I was a teenager,
he's going to talk about his sex addiction and sobriety.
I was addicted to alcohol and got in a lot of trouble and got sober when I was 17. And then 3 years after that, I was on a television show. And that felt great. And it was like this new thing and a new source of, to fill me up. Like when I was young, it was like I was just shy. I just didn't know how to get along in the world. I didn't know how to talk to people, and alcohol was like the best solution for that. The problem is for me, normally you have a window. It's like, it's fun, they say, and then fun with problems and then just problems. Like my window from fun to just problems was so short. And I was a ward of the court and all this stuff. But
he's like, oh man, I didn't get to really live it up when I was little. But I hear where he's coming from. Some people aren't going to like that excuse or his sort of smug laughter towards it. But again, he's trying to acknowledge where this sort of stemmed from. He clearly has attention issues. He needs the attention of people.
Once I couldn't use alcohol to sort of fill that hole, it was like, oh, success, attention, this is great. And so in a weird way, I got addicted to validation, I guess, or success or whatever that is. And then there was another thing that happened where along the road, of trying to get success and, climb the top of that mountain, attention from women, success with women also became a huge source of validation for me. The problem with that is, like, I'm sure you can guess, like any sort of drug or anything, like, there's never enough. It's sort of always I talk about like this if-then sort of scenario where I thought, if I get this, then I'll be happy. And then I got there, and then it was like, well, okay, well, if I get that, then I'll be happy. And it was never ending. And it's also sadly the same thing with people, it's, if I'm with that, like, this is all subconscious, but like, if I'm with that person, I'll be happy. And then it's not enough. I'm just trying to fill that hole, and it never gets filled. So at around the same time I hit the wall with work, my sister-in-law, Iris Torres, given me a book on sex and love addiction. And I'd been in recovery for a long time, right? But I got sober really young. So like I could identify with a lot in the alcohol literature, but like when I read this book, it was like it hit me like a bullet, and it was like, oh my God, that's me. And up until that point, like as crazy as it is, like I had inklings like, okay, maybe this is an issue. My parents had stayed married their whole lives, so like I respected marriage, and like there had been a part of me, even all through it, even at my craziest, where it was like, well, I wanna get married. I wanna be in a serious relationship. I didn't know how. And after reading that book, it was like, oh, this is an issue that I'm not going to solve on my own.
I hate these. I'm going to use that as a moment to pause because I have to take some breaks here. But I believe this happens to a lot of men in Hollywood and a lot of men in general, especially good-looking guys like this who have an issue. Like he basically substituted one addiction for the other. Is what happened here. He was into alcohol. He then became sober, but then he filled that need with somebody else. I have a friend who did seemed to do a similar thing. I'm sober here, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be healthy in my relationships with women. It's sort of what happened. And you can really do it. This is a thing. And I also think this happens a lot in Hollywood with these big guys, especially we think someone like, oh, sexy James Franco, he has it all. Oh my God. But the reality is that truly celebrities are just like us. They still are depressed. Even when you get that high enough accolade or the hottest girl, you think, oh my God, I finally... you learn quickly, oh, okay, well, I did that. It wasn't the dream I thought it was. And so when you can get everything you want, at a certain point, it becomes harder and harder to fulfill yourself, especially when you're raying on that to fulfill you instead of learning how to fulfill yourself in healthier ways. And so, look, I applaud him for opening up like this. This is pretty serious stuff he's unloading publicly and telling people. Again, because what I think he needs right now is he's missing the attention and people, adoring him. As for someone who's going through this issue, I imagine it's brutal. And I feel like it's safe to say, yeah, I had a little bit of that issue myself, attention issue of clearly most people who are talking on YouTube for 3 hours at a time clearly crave attention. It's something we clearly like. And when you lose it, it's a hard thing to sort of, and then everyone turns on you. It's a hard thing. So I do feel for these people who it's like, it's trauma. It is. Not to, try to compare to what the people that are accusing him of what they did. We can get those specifics in a minute, but he's definitely been through trauma. It's clear, and he's clearly taking the time to learn why he was just replacing one addiction with another, why he wasn't in healthy relationships, etc. He's going to get into that in a second. But the sex addiction, I do believe is a thing. There's porn addiction. There's a lot of addiction, screen addiction. Guys, there's a lot of stuff we are addicted to that we don't even realize. And so when you're like someone like a James Franco, and you suddenly then are like, I can have every woman, and then you start wanting every woman, and then you're getting them, and then you're using that as a way to fulfill your needs. Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, that's the problem here. And so look, I compare myself only in that, like, yeah, I think a lot of us like to crave attention, but he took it to a point where it's like, you opened a school, dude, and then you're teaching classes called sex scenes with James Franco, dude. You took it too far. Like, I think if he had just flirted with his fans and just slept with them once in a while and not opened a school, he would still be doing it. And I bet you it happens all the time with huge famous actors. I'm sure there's a ton of them that have slept around like crazy, and it is what it is. So I think by opening the school, that, and then clearly using the school as a buffet, which he's saying he didn't do. I think that's where he really faltered here, and that's why I think it's harder to forgive him, because he really took it. Now, is he going to take accountability for that? Is he owning up to those actions? That's what I feel like I need to see him do before we can really say, we forgive you, James. Okay, looks like you're really learning. I do think there's some signs of growth here for sure. There's some signs of maturity a little bit, but I still think he thinks 4 years is enough, and the reality is, even I know, like, we're still all growing. We haven't solved. You can't solve yourself in 4 years. It takes a lifetime.
Such a powerful drug, and I got hooked on it for 20 more years. And the insidious part of that is that I stayed sober from alcohol all that time. So, and I went to meetings, all that time. I even tried to, sponsor other people, and so in my head, it was like, oh, I'm sober. I'm living a spiritual life. Where on the side, I'm acting out now in all these other ways, and I couldn't see it. And even my sponsor was like, who's happily married, he was like, look, whatever happens, but, because I had girlfriends. I could never be faithful to anybody. So I cheated on everyone before Isabel. And he's like, look, the cheating is dishonest. I don't think that's good for your sobriety. But if you're not dating someone and you want to go and hook up, like, whatever happens between two consenting adults is fine. Like, that's what he said. The problem was I took that and I ran with it and used it as an excuse to, just hook up all over the place. And it was like, well, we're being honest here, right? And like you said, like, completely blind to power dynamics or anything like that, but also completely blind to people's feelings. I didn't want to hurt people. And in fact, I wasn't like really a one night stand guy. Like, people that I, got together with or dated, like, I'd see them for a long time, years. It's just that I couldn't be present for any of them. And the behavior spun out to a point where it was like I was hurting everybody.
That's a very telling and interesting. He's acknowledging the fact that he was an asshole. He was using women, and he was saying, look, it was consensual. And I think this is where things are going to get divided in the chat and everywhere else. But, like, some people are going to say, yeah, he's an adult. If he's with other adults, and it's consensual, who cares? But he's acknowledging sort of like, well, it's not okay because I was just using them. And look, some women are okay with that. let's be clear. Some women are like, yeah, use me, James Franco. You're hot. I just want a one night stand. Please, use me? I'm sure there were instances where that happened and it wasn't a big deal for anybody, and they were happy and James was happy and they both went on and went their separate ways. In which case, who cares? But when you open up a school and then you potentially are preying on your fans, young fans especially, that's when shit goes south. And that's the issues with James Franco. And that's what he's also probably has to be careful of, because if he acknowledges that, then there's more lawsuits and things. So there's PR at play here. So while I applaud what he's saying here, I do think he's opening up. I do think he's being honest. He's being raw and honest in ways that I think people are maybe not going to accept, but I think are true. I'm not sure about how much he's really learned. See, and then we're at this next clip. An agent had an intervention from being a workaholic. Who cares? Opens up about his relationship with Seth Rogan. We played that earlier. Here's where I want to go. So there you're seeing some of the responses. Now, here's what he's accused of, and here's that. James Franco's accusers call him completely insensitive after interview. And I want to get your thoughts here. We're going to go through this, and then I'll put the poll up. Lawyers for two of the women accusing actor James Franco of misconduct have said his admission that he had sex with students from his acting school is completely insensitive. The statement given to U.S. media by lawyers for actors Sarah Tither Kaplan and Tony Gall, these are the two that won $2.2 million in July, said the star was blind about power dynamics. I mean, he admitted that. He admitted that. They called the drama school a sham. Franco told it. Now, I don't know if, was that really his goal, was just to sleep with women? I don't know. I do believe that he's telling the truth. At least he thinks he is. But that he was trying to do the right thing. Now, did he maybe see some benefits because, oh shit, I have this school and look, that's a hot chick and they know I'm James Franco. Yeah. But was that the goal? I don't know. I can't say that was for sure. And if they thought that was the case, why didn't they take it all the way through? They took the money, settled, when they could have just taken him to court. It goes both ways. You know, if you want to say James Franco's guilty because he took the money, well, you took the money too. He paid the money, but you took the money. And if you think if you have such an issue with what he's doing to students and everything, and you want to keep putting your name out there and fight this, well, then don't just take the money right away. Take it all the way. Because if you're telling the truth, it happened, and this was really a scam, then you'd make even more money in the settlement afterwards, and you'd be charged with a crime. But now he's not charged with a crime because you settled. So this goes both ways. We can use the settlement to blame, Franco's guilty, but you can also use the settlement to be like, well, why'd you settle? You didn't go all the way? Like in my instance, I had to settle when the company went under. And I didn't want to settle. I had no interest in settling, to be perfectly blunt. But the company went under. The company was non existent. I sadly can't get into the details of it, but I will just say I'm happy, and it worked, and it was. And the demise of my company shutting down was, in a way, I felt like, all right, vindication in a way. You know what I mean? In this instance, though, they're both there. Why settle? Both of them clearly felt nervous of some way, and that nothing was shut down. They could have pursued either way. James Franco could have pursued his innocence, and they could have pursued that he did something wrong. They both chose to meet in the middle, and so it is a little frustrating when you're like, all right, we're going to settle, but we're still going to call you out every chance we get. It's odd that clearly they weren't going to agree to that in the settlement, because I'm sure that was part of it. Like, hey, well, then you're not allowed to talk about this anymore if you take the money, and they must not have agreed to that. I guess the lawyers are saying it, not them. So Franco told, he said he did sleep with students. The actor was nominated, blah, 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 blah. He agreed to pay for engaging in sexually charged behavior towards female students. That's what he's accused of. Well, let's go through more specific. Statement from the two law firms added, it's unbelievable that even after agreeing to a settlement, he continues to downplay the survivors' experiences, ignore their pain, despite acknowledging he had no business starting such a school in the first place. Well, I mean, he did. He wanted to start a school. You signed up for the school. He took advantage of the opportunity, that they had around him, of just like, well, these people look up to me. And that was where he failed. But that's, in addition to not being blind about power dynamics, which he admitted to, Franco is completely insensitive to and still apparently does not care about the immense pain and suffering he put his victims through with the sham of an acting school. I mean, again, I didn't get that. I feel like he's showing some remorse. They said he's never going to show enough remorse for these people, but he paid you. So what else do you want for him to be dead? Like what this is the problem. Like, all right, now what? You accepted a settlement. Okay, he paid. He's allowed to move on now because you accepted money. Am I crazy in that, guys? To be a little annoyed where it's like, okay, if this isn't what you want, then keep pursuing it legally. You took it this far. They said his behavior wasn't a misunderstanding over a course name. It was the result of him being overworked, and They said his behavior wasn't misunderstanding over a course name. It wasn't the result of him being overworked. It was and is despicable conduct. They added that nobody should confuse this interview with Franco taking accountability for his actions or expressing remorse over what happened, calling it transparent ducking of the real issues released just before a major holiday in hopes that he wouldn't face any scrutiny over his response. I mean, the timing was weird. He did put it at a time when no one's around. That's fair. Fair criticism. Tither Kaplan said on Twitter, platforming abusers while excluding survivors causes even further harm. Survivor blacklisting is still a very real problem. True. But what is the goal here? Should he never? This is what I really want to get to. This is the part that's interesting to me. At what point is he allowed to move on? You took a settlement. Does that not end it? What is she just forever going to condemn him even after taking his money? Why did you accept the money? Why didn't you pursue him in court? You were there. You settled, Tither Kaplan. I mean, I don't mean to be mean, but excluding you guys made an agreement. You're saying what you want. He's saying what he wants. We're moving on. That's what happens now. You didn't charge him with a crime, and so therefore he's not a criminal. You made that decision. I'm a little confused, and I'm not even trying to blacklist or cause her pain. You're putting these statements out to respond and be mad when you agreed to terms. I'm a little confused. Franco told. We got both here. I'm curious Steph and Lewis's take on this because I'm confused. Let's get a little bit more why they're upset. Franco told Jess Cagle that he's not started the school to lure women for sex. That he remained quiet over the allegations because there were people that were upset with me, but I needed to listen. Tither Kaplan and Gall, who attended Franco's now defunct acting school, alleged he tried to create a pipeline of young women who were suggested as personal and professional exploitation in the name of education. The class action lawsuit filed in Los Angeles in 2019 alleged he abused his position and dangled opportunities for roles in films. Students claim they were victims of fraud for paying for the acting school while being sexually objectified and intimidated. When the allegations first surfaced, Franco said they were not accurate, but he made payments to Tither Kaplan as well as other students who filed complaints. In excerpts from the podcast that were made public on Wednesday, Franco said he had been in recovery for sex addiction since 2016 and had been doing a lot of work after the allegations against him and changing who he was. I suppose at the time my thinking was if it's consensual, okay. Asked how he could be unaware of the potential power dynamics between a teacher and a student, Franco responded, "At the time, I was not clear-headed. I was in recovery before for substance abuse. There were some issues that I had to deal with that were also related to addiction. And I've had to deal with I've had to deal with other addiction. And so I've really used my recovery background to kind of start examining this and changing who I was." So again, the questions, and we should find the more, I'm trying to find them. I'm going to go through the actual allegations. Because that's important. While I'm looking for that, I'm happy to have two guests with me. Oh my God, the amazing Steph, the Alter Nerd, and Nerd Lecca himself, Louis Lecca. What's up, you two?
What up?
Hey up, everyone. How do?
Oh man, I did it all myself, Andy. I took care of the entire Popcorn Planet last week all by myself. It was so much hard work. No, I'm kidding. Oh my gosh, Stefania. Oh my gosh. Damn, you did such a great job, girl. You were like, you barely cracked a sweat. You were like handling the people. It was great. Great stuff, Steph.
Thank you very much.
And welcome back, Andy.
Thank you both.
Yeah,
and
welcome back, mate.
Thank you so much. Steph and Louis covered. Steph was really all week, and Louis came in. Thank you both for help stepping up like you did. We're back to business. Thank you for being here, as always. I want to get right into it, though. I don't know if you guys have been watching, but what do you think about this? And the question I really want to get to right away as I look up more, let's get more specific on what these accusers are doing, if James Franco makes a settlement, right, for $2.2 million, and now is like attempting to like get back out there in the world, like, when you see the victims he settled with still out there screaming, what are your thoughts on that? Like, because to me, my frustration here is, and I'm trying to open also up. Why don't I see? My frustration here is like, if you're really upset and he's preying on these women, which you're saying he's doing, okay, I'm believing it. Why didn't you see it through? Why'd you take the money right away if you think this is a big problem? Steph, I want to go to you because do you think I'm being crazy in that thought process? Is that unfair of me to sort of be a little confused as to like, well, if you're this upset, shouldn't you have saw it through? Like, you would have gotten more money if it's all legit and on the up and up. Yeah, don't let this happen everywhere else. You've taken it this far. Your names are all over the place. You know, it's they took a first payment, they took now a $2.2 million payment, and they're still out there like just completely condemning him and his actions and saying he still isn't right. What are your thoughts?
So, two things. Firstly, I'm not comparing the two, but it's something that jumps to mind, which is Michael Jackson. And when Jordan Chandler first came out back in the 90s and said he did what he did, Michael Jackson, some people believe, paid him even though some people believe Michael Jackson was innocent, they believe that he paid him just to avoid it all, pay him off, not go through a court of law, and then just get rid of that problem by just throwing money at it. Allegedly, that's what all his advisors were saying. So that kind of jumps to mind with this one. However, with James Franco in particular, whether consensual or not, let's say, he did abuse his position of power and authority. There was a power imbalance between him and his students that he was actively engaging with. So whether consensual or not, he still did a wrong thing. He still did a bad thing. He abused his position of power. In regards to the victims, they get paid off, but they're still mouthing off this, that, and the other. Okay. Part of me thinks, if it is true, and it wasn't consensual, goes back to what Detective Hubbard was saying a few months back when we were covering the Gabby Petito case. The burden of proof is much, much, much lower in civil court than it is in criminal court. So you say, well, you know, why did they just take the money? Why didn't they take it all the way if he is such a bad guy? Maybe they can't take it all the way because they don't have that level of proof that is required at a higher standard in a criminal case than a civil case when they're just going for money. So I've kind of got a balanced view of it. If it was consensual, maybe he's just throwing money at it just to kind of shut him up, kind of like what Michael Jackson did. However, if it wasn't, there is a higher level of proof, a higher standard to achieve in criminal court that unfortunately a lot of victims can't actually do because the success rate for prosecutions are extremely low for this kind of act. So maybe the only thing that they could do was go after him civilly, which has got a lower burden of proof, and kind of get their justice that way. Now, in a way, it's James Franco's fault that they're still mouthing off, because I would have thought that in the settlements, he could have put a clause in saying, right, you can get this money, but shut the hell up.
Which they clearly
you've got your justice,
didn't agree to.
You've got what you want. That's it now. We're all moving on. But he hasn't done that. So in that respect, they've got the money, they're still talking in the media. Well, it is what it is. He didn't put that clause in the settlement. So what else can you do?
Yeah, but see, that's it's weird to me because they accepted the money. Like, they accepted the money, and to me, he looks guilty paying the money. I'll be honest, he does.
Yeah.
He absolutely looks guilty paying the money. No qualms, of course.
Just like Michael Jackson.
Yeah, I asked Taj about that, and Taj was like, it was Michael's biggest regret in his whole life, and that's why he didn't do it the next time and won, which was very telling, right? But yeah, it's just a weird look for me to just don't take the money if you are this adamant about it. You know what I mean? It's part of me, because it's like it just doesn't. I don't know. It looks like sour grapes. Where it's like you took the money, but I could see now why James Franco. There's sort of a rule. Like I think Trump sort of exposed it too. It's like there are so many silence clauses and stuff to these these deals that are kind of not right. And so, but at a certain point, like if you're going to settle in a case, like I settled in a case, I'm not allowed to talk about it. Like I made that choice again, which I didn't really want to do, to be perfectly honest. But I did that because they shut down, right? There wasn't a company there to really fight anymore because they got shut down, and it was like, I can't get this to more details, sadly, so I'll just leave it at that. But I knew, like, all right, in this instance, because the company's no longer here, and I can't even like specifically fight the people, I'd have to go fight directly because the bank or whoever it was shut them down. It was a really embarrassing look for them, and it was a vindication for me. Like, see, this company sucked. It wasn't just they were using me in a way. That's why I did it. But I wouldn't have if I had the opportunity and I really could have fought them. I would have kept going. So it's like it's just that's just my intake of us. Like, if you were so worried about it and you think he's preying on these women, which he very well could have been doing, it seems weird that they just took the money and then immediately are out there as soon as he's sort of trying to move on with his life and open up himself in a way and say, yeah, I'm a sex addict. I slept with students I shouldn't have. I'm acknowledging the power imbalance. It's like it's never going to be enough for these people, clearly. Which is not that it should be, like they should get over this, but I don't know. It's just weird. Lewis, did you have thoughts? I want to go through the allegations.
Yeah, I do. I have a couple thoughts real quick. Is my mic sound okay?
Yeah,
First of all, look, I want to say again, we got a little bit off before everyone wants to know what I think. We got almost 900 people here watching. It's been rough these past few weeks because everyone's everywhere. But man, thanks everyone for coming here and supporting my man, Andy and Steph. But could we get the likes up a little bit? I mean, it's just one click, just boop, like that, just boop. There's less than 400 likes up here. And also, there's another rule there's a couple new rules when I come on here. First, I want to see a lot of heads. That's my head. And I want to see at least 10 new members while I'm here. I'm going to be really, really upset. And yeah, it's going up. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. So let's do that for Andy. Look, man, I'm sad because I like James Franco, man. He's a talented guy, man. He's a solid looking, talented presence in movies. I just watched Spider-Man 1 and 2. I love his acting in there. He's been in other stuff. Yes, they took the money. Maybe there wasn't I don't know why they're talking now. That's so weird.
Yes, that's what it is.
Should he be allowed to work again? Well, what do you want? Should he kill himself? What do you want? No, go out and look for a job, James Franco, in Hollywood. That's what you do. And I'm going to tell you, the people will speak. If you choose not to watch his movie, then he gets hurt like that and he won't get hired. That's how you do it. But I don't see, this is inappropriate sexual explicit behavior, not forcing himself. He didn't do anything like real harsh, did he? Maybe I'm missing something.
No, I mean, from what I've gathered, it was all the abuse of. Let's go through it because I think it's. Because I think we should
get those likes up. 500, please.
So this is where he wore a Time's Up pin. It was like a slap to my face. It's Sarah, former acting student at the school Franco founded. Seth Rogan was one of 5 women who, in interviews with Times, accused Franco of behavior they found to be inappropriate of sexually exploitative. So behavior. 4 of his students and another said he was her mentor. In some cases, they said they believed Franco could offer them career advancement and acquiesced to his wishes even when they were uncomfortable. I feel there was an abuse of power and there was a culture of exploiting non-celebrity women and a culture of women being replaceable, said Tither Kaplan, who was one of many women who took to Twitter on Sunday night to vent anger over Franco's win and his support of Time's Up. Yeah, well, let's hey, Tither Kaplan, let's talk about Time's Up for a second, shall we? You want to talk about a sham? You want to talk about a sham? Sorry. This is why we got to ask these questions, because there's sadly a lot of really, because I saw someone in there was like, are we victim shaming? No, we're asking questions. we're asking questions because sadly, the culture we live in, there are a lot of snakes in this culture. Sadly, Time's Up was a run by corrupt, awful people who were doing terrible things behind the scenes. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up. It's an embarrassment what Time's Up became, and they should be ashamed of themselves what they did, because there was some real true stuff that needed to happen in Hollywood, etc. And Time's Up was exploiting the movement to do political things, and they were actually victim shaming others to protect others, including Cuomo, and it's a mess what Time's Up was involved in. So keep that in mind as we read back these accusations with that lens.
Evil people hide behind good intentions.
Correct. So look, and the reality is, I've been negative on James Franco, but it's like I gotta hear all sides. I gotta call it all out. And the reality is, these accusers took $2.2 million. So take that as you will. She told the Times that in a nude orgy scene she filmed with Franco and several women 3 years ago, he removed protective plastic guards covering other actresses' V's while simulating OS on them. Okay, well, like, that's just fucking weird. Why would you do that? Like, any of them. Illegal. Why are you in this scene in the first place? Because you want a job with James Franco? It's like, no. No, but I'm just, whoa. Can Time's Up and Me Too finally help us all? Like, that's not okay, guys. No fucking class should make you do an orgy scene. Like what the hell is, no. Why are we doing, who's like, okay, I'm going to learn. Yeah, I'll be in this orgy scene with you, James Franco. Can we please be loud enough and say that's not normal class behavior? Guys,
I semi-disagree with you, though.
Let's help make sure people know. What do you mean? Do you think that's normal?
Well, no. Okay, look, maybe I'm maybe you could correct me here. They're reenacting an orgy scene. Yes, I wouldn't be in one.
It doesn't matter. Why are we?
But hold on a second. Let me get my point across. The thing is, they had protective plastics as acting, right? Once he takes it off, that sounds like it's illegal. For example, I've seen boxing fights. As soon as the bell rings to end the round, you hit the fighter, and it's an assault. You can get arrested for that. It's different, even though you're in a sport where you're fighting within the round. As soon as the bell rings, that's it. Here, from what I understand, and I could be wrong, he's saying protective, or they're saying protective plastic guards. They're covering the private parts in an act in a movie that's about an orgy, right? Or they're doing an orgy scene. He removes them. Now we're talking maybe liability. That seems weird. But I'm going to ask Steph, help me here. Doesn't it? It's like when actors kiss, they really kiss on the side of the cheek. If another actor goes and starts to slime inside.
They are alleging he removed plastic places over the guards while simulating on them. Now, my whole take is like, yes, that's not, if they didn't want asked to do that, that's wrong. The reality is Hollywood's so fucked up. Like, there's all these stories of like Robert De Niro Bridget Fonda really wanted Robert De Niro to fuck him and Jackie Brown. There's so many instances of real movie scenes where the actor's like, no, I want you to do it. Please do it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, all right. I mean, if they're both wanting to do it, it is what it is, right? So I don't know what the situation here is. All I know is it's just fucking weird that you sign up for James Franco's acting school and day one is like, hey, we're doing the nude orgy class. Like what the fuck school is this? Would be immediately I will instill this on my daughter.
Is this true though? Is that
to
proven?
The end. If any college, unless you're going to porn school. That's literally what this is. I'm just like already like, what the hell why would you get this far? And what's frustrating is like, and I'm not trying to shame anybody, I understand the power, but it's like they were upset because they thought he could offer career advancement. And so we're at a point where people get so desperate for career advancement, they're blind to the reality of that this isn't okay. This isn't just a power imbalance. This is just like, what the fuck is Hollywood doing that we think it's okay to put college kids in orgy classes? Like, I'm sorry, that's fucked up. Like, the fact that these people weren't well aware, like, you know what, I'm not comfortable doing an orgy scene. I don't get it. I don't fucking get it. Now, that doesn't give James Franco the right if they're supposed to, okay, but protective plastic or not, this is fucking weird. It's fucking weird.
It is weird. I agree with you, but the rules are protective plastics because it's an acting scene. So once the protective plastics obviously are there, so there's no, we're all adults. Use your imagination. He takes them off. All bets are gone, man. It's like I said, it's like throwing a kick during a boxing match. That's an assault, even though you're in a fight, and stuff like that. So Steph said, "Is it true?" I would say this is true because we can only go by what they're reporting. Obviously, we weren't there, but I'm going by my opinions based on what they're saying.
Right. So I want to get Steph, but let's just go through these accusations, and I want to come to you, Steph, if you want to comment on. But so that's the first thing. They're accused of him removing the guards. Okay, and that's not good if that happened. Absolutely not good. My attitude is the whole thing's not good. It's just already red flag number one when James Franco is like, "Hey, we're going to do a fake orgy in my class for no purpose. But let's just do that." Already issue number one that we need to start instilling and saying it out loud. Guys, that's not normal. Let's not let young people go up to Hollywood thinking, yeah, be blinded by celebrities so they could put you in orgy scenes. That's fucked up. And if that's what's going on, that's sort of normalized. It should have the protective plan. The whole thing's weird. The whole thing's fucked up. We shouldn't be putting people in these situations at all. We should be better than that. So that's issue one. If he did that, okay, not good. Two other actresses also recounted negative on-set experiences. Both said Franco became angry when no women, while at the shoot, would agree to be topless. Franco's attorney disputed all the women's allegations and directed the Times to Franco's comments Tuesday night on The Late Show. "Look, at my life, I pride myself on taking responsibility for things that I've done. I have to do that to maintain my well-being. The things that I heard that are on Twitter are not accurate. But I completely support people coming out and being able to have a voice because they didn't have a voice for so long, so I don't want to shut them down in any way. If I've done something wrong, I will fix it. I have to." Now, this was really weird, that appearance on Colbert. They had him on, and Colbert just shut stuff. There's like, yeah, okay, and just basically gave him an out. And then James Franco was out there wearing Time's Up pins, and everyone was sort of like, all right, he's going to move on. A creative force. So that's it. Those are the accusations. Use bad after. Franco's also attracted for his controversial. Yeah, this is so he did ask a 17-year-old in out in New York, and apparently 17s that is legal in New York, apparently.
In England, right?
No, he would use Instagram to ask a 17-year-old if he'd met outside if she'd have a boyfriend and whether she was 18. Even after learning her age, he asked for the name of her hotel and if she should rent a room. After that episode became public, Franco apologized. "I'm embarrassed, and I guess I'm just a model of how social media is tricky. I used bad judgment. I learned my lesson." Now, this is gross. This is gross. And Seth Rogan made a joke about it on Saturday Night Live, which is why I'm annoyed with Seth Rogan. Like, Seth Rogan didn't know what Franco was up to. Like, give me a break. You made jokes about it on Saturday Night Live. That's not funny.
They all thought that was funny. They all thought that was funny until what's it called, Weinstein, right? They all laughed at that stuff, man. Look at your videotapes. Like, look at the old movies, man. Like, they all laughed at. He grabbed someone inappropriately. Isn't that funny? Like, they all did that, man. And then they're trying to lecture us through films and stuff like that. That's why people are annoyed. That's why you get other channels, people constantly slamming Hollywood for probably unfairly, is because we're being lectured to. And me personally, all my friends, everyone I hang around, we've been respectful to everyone, men, women, old people. That's who I hang with. All of a sudden, these people are lecturing us who've been always like among scum, laughing at inappropriate behavior. And now they want to advertise to us and exploit the situation. And that's where we're pissed. That's where a lot of us are pissed at that. And we're annoyed.
Here's the last accusation. I'm going to come to you, Steph. Teacher, so before opening Studio 4, which is the school, Franco taught at Playhouse West, school where he'd received training as an actor. Two of his former students there said he'd put female students in uncomfortable situations beyond the normal parameters of acting class. Hillary, who took the class in 2012, said she found him to be really generous spirit, eager to help aspiring actors. Her feelings shifted after being selected to appear with a handful of other female students in what she thought was one of Franco's art films. Natalie, the other student, said she was told the footage would be used in a 7 For All Mankind jeans commercial. Both women described what they considered to be an unprofessional and hostile shoot at a strip club. Midway through filming, Dusum and Franco approached the actresses, who wore masks and lingerie, and asked, "So who wants to take your shirt off?" When no actresses volunteered, Franco stormed off, Dusum recalled. Felt like I was selected for something based on my hard work and my merit, and when I realized it was because I have nice breasts, it was pretty clear that was not the case. I don't think he started teaching with bad intentions, but he went down a bad path, damaged a lot of people in the process. So even she's acknowledging he didn't design. One of the own victim is saying, I don't think he started this with bad intentions. And the complaint here, which I got to be honest, this is ridiculous. So he's on an art shoot in a strip club, and he got upset because no one wanted to take their tops off. Not even like, hey, you take your top off or you're fired. Literally, no. So he has bad attitude, but like it's a strip club scene. He asks if anybody, and nobody does. So he stormed off. What that means is did he personally attack somebody? And then she's upset because she got cast in the strip scene because of her breasts and not her talent. This is the complaint? I'm confused. All right, I've been putting it out. Steph, I want to hear your thoughts on this. What am I missing?
Okay. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I don't think he started off with bad intentions, but then someone else say, for the first ever freaking lesson, we were doing nude scenes, this, that, and the other. The other thing as well is, I don't know how it is in America, but over here, if you go to university, college, whatever, right, and you want to take a course, it's going to give you a syllabus, step-by-step guide of what you're going to be learning for each like semester or month or whatnot, right? Wouldn't these women and the people that attended his classes be warned beforehand in the syllabus, before they bought the bloody class, that, you know, this was going to happen? You're going to be taught acting from James Franco, but it's going to be this, it's going to be nude scenes, you're going to be taught how to do this, you're going to be taught how to do that. You know, literally step by step of, before you part with your money, this is what you're considering buying, basically. So there's that. The third thing is, regardless, again, if it's consensual or not, the fact of the matter is he abused his power. He abused his position of authority, and it comes down to this. Teachers, do not mess about with students. If a teacher, right, was caught messing with their students, right, they would be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. The full extent of the law. So this is where it gives me pause, and I think, okay, right, they've got him civilly and they've got the money, but again, lower burden of proof there, easier to get, fine. However, why didn't they go criminally against him? As teachers and students, again, should not be mixing. He should be punished by the full extent of the law. So why didn't they do that? That is the bit that I wonder now out of all of this. You hear stories of teachers messing with students and they get crucified in the courts. So why didn't it happen here? There's something missing, but we clearly do not know. And even James Franco said it himself. There's a lot of stuff that's been said on social media, that's been said publicly, but a lot of it is either untrue or it's misleading. Although, again, I ain't giving James Franco free pass, guys. Regardless if it was consensual or not, he did a wrong thing here, which is he abused his position of authority and he went with his students, and he shouldn't be doing that in the first place because there's an imbalance there. And he took full advantage of that. Again, whether that's consensual or not, that is still pure freaking wrong. But yeah, they're my thoughts on it so far.
All right, I wanted to read a couple more things here. Let's see here. There was hold on. Okay. I wanted to read these accusations here because there's a little bit more. And thank you for that take, Steph.
No problem.
So here's what happened at this theater itself.
I'll be back in a moment. I've got to restart my computer.
Oh, that's no problem. There we go. So I just want to get through it all and make sure we cover this all fairly. So he launched Studio Force's school in 2014, famously the home of blah, 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 blah. More than a dozen former students told the Times that they had a positive experience at Studio 4, where pupils were initially charged a monthly tuition fee of $300, which is insanely low. That's insanely low for a school like this. Many said they were shocked by the school's sudden closure and didn't know why it shuttered. Former student Prashant Thakur said Franco put in extra effort to make students feel heard, even meeting with them outside of class hours. If he felt the class wasn't enough, he would take us writers to a separate venue outside of class. He would keep teaching us over and over again. So that's interesting. In this accusation piece, there were a ton of people who had positive experiences. It was kind of a bummer, said Kelsey. He was shooting The Deuce, which, let's mind you, he was playing like a pimp in some like HBO porn show. So that does offer some context here, Lewis, as to maybe why there was a lot of sex stuff happening, because he was playing like a twin pimps or something. But would come to class and you were like, did you just fall asleep under your ball cap? He'd sit at the front and be grouch. I wish he would just taken it more responsibility to teach. Now, this, I do buy his excuse that he was just overworking himself. And that excuse is coming at this complaint, which is in the big piece that came out to attack him and his credibility and everything. And this is the accusations article. He was falling asleep at class. That was the complaint here. Okay, well, okay. That happens sometimes. One of the things that made Studio 4 different from other acting schools, Franco promised, was its ability to funnel promising talent into the actors' own projects. Indeed, the school's now closed website said that Franco and his production company would cast roles directly from his classes and will involve his students in a variety of film and art projects. Okay, well, that's a weird thing to promise. They should have probably not done that. But it also doesn't guarantee anybody, does it, Lewis? And I don't see like, you are guaranteed one film role. Like, welcome to Hollywood, guys. You may get it. Several students said that these parts were rarely handed out to people in their classes. Okay, well, sadly, that's normal. They would tell us that, he just shouldn't have offered that, is the reality check there. That was a stupid thing to put out there. It's just been an unwritten rule and then not made it part of the selling feature. I agree on that. Lauren Elizabeth, thank you for becoming, you've been a member for 3 months. I thank you so much. A few of you have been. I'm going to catch up to your chats in a second. They would tell us that smaller parts in their projects were being held exclusively for students. Often there were opportunities for extra work or parts that required nudity, said Devin Labella, who spent a year as a student on the NoHo location. I didn't have agency representation at the time, so I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to get into a good audition, so this might be my opportunity. Labella said she and classmates uploaded auditions to a website, but no one she knew ever heard back. Katie Ryan, who met Franco at Playhouse, took several classes at Studio 4, said she would always... the actor would always make everybody think there were possible roles on the table if we were to perform sexual acts or take off our shirts. That's a huge charge there, and I wish there was a little bit more on this, but that's the biggest thing I've seen so far that's like, well, that's effed up. She said that for years she received mass email requests from Franco to audition for roles playing a prostitute or a hooker. I wish she would have shared these emails, but okay, I'll take her word for it. Franco is not aware that there are any of these actions alleged by Miss Ryan ever occurred. Vince, co-owner of Rab, said in a statement that the school was always run professionally. Our instructors were excellent. Student feedback was positive. They are investigating complaints about the school that are very inconsistent with our mission. Some students did appear in productions. In 2015, the company made a deal with digital distributor Maker Studios to premiere 2 original series spawned from Studio 4. One of the projects was a docuseries that went behind the scenes of Franco's Sex Scenes Masterclass, which taught students about the art of being intimate on camera. Red flags. As part of Tither Kaplan's experience in the Sex Scenes class, she and her partner created a short film, Hungry Girl, which shows her topless and was uploaded to the video sharing website Vimeo. Last year, she discovered images from the film on at least one pornographic website. Now, if you Google me, you can see me naked. Before I've ever been on TV, or before I've ever had any real credits, or before any of this, of course, I regret that. I don't want that. Wait, she filmed herself naked and posted it to Vimeo. Did she post it? And now she's annoyed that there's nudity in the world. Okay. It's weird. Okay. Video posted to Vimeo said it was not under the control of the school or Franco. Any online posting of videos, including if applicable Vimeo, were operated and created by the students to showcase their collective work. So someone in her film posts the video on Vimeo, and now she's mad that she's naked on the internet. If you don't want to be naked on the internet, don't get naked on camera. That's just a weird thing.
Yeah, no one's going to be watching unless you advertise it on the New York Times.
Yeah, I didn't know. I would never have known. It's everywhere. It's just weird. Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't looking for her picture.
All right. Anyway, but So, Robert, the production company appeared to be aware that the videos had been uploaded in a May 2015 email sent to their Kaplan and her fellow students, which were reviewed by the Times. A company employee told the class he just wanted to let them know that films are now up on the Studio 4 Vimeo channel. Okay, so they did load them up on the Vimeo channel. So, and she was aware. School leadership will be investigating these complaints. They are committed to hearing voices of concerns and be receptive to their issues. Now, was it password protected? Did someone in the school? I have so many questions here. 2015, Franco asked her to play a prostitute in another of his projects, that feature film, The Long Home, with a cast that included him, Josh Hutcherson, Courtney Love, and Timothy Hutton. The part required her to perform nude, and she agreed because she considered it a big break. In fact, she signed nudity agreements for each of the films she made with Franco. But one day on set in May 2015, a producer approached her and other women to ask if they wanted to film a bonus scene of an orgy. And in it, Tither and Kaplan appeared fully nude. She said a handful of other women were selected to appear with Franco, who simulated performing. Oh, this is the moment. Okay. Simulating performing sex on them. But in each case, she said he removed a clear plastic guard that covered their parts and continued to stimulate the sex act with no protection. Well, then that's assault. Am I wrong, Steph?
That is assault. However, with people around, why? I'm not. This is not victim blaming. Okay, I'm just asking questions here. Why didn't they speak up at that point? I'd be like, "Oi, you've removed my plastic thing, Bob, dude. What the deuce?" And again, I'm not victim blaming here or anything like that.
But see, I'm glad you said that, not me, Steph, because
there's a lot of people there.
Wow, I'm sorry. Like, exactly. Like, you don't want him to do it, and he's removing the thing, and you're uncomfortable, and we're at a point where it's like, well, I don't want to get fired. Dude, he's assaulting you, and there's people all around you, and he would have been caught red-handed. Like, we got to start calling this shit out, not to victim blame exactly, but like, we need to start empowering. When something like that happens, speak up. Because that's fucked up, and it would have case closed. He would have been called out right then and there. She should have sued him right then and there, and this all would have stopped back in 2015. I don't fucking get it.
I don't get it either. This was not in a hotel room where it was just them lot. This was on a film set with so many people around. I can imagine. He removes the protective guard, and she doesn't speak up and say, "Hang on a minute, my protective guard has slipped." Not even to say that he's removed it. If she felt awkward blaming Franco in front of everyone there and then, she could have just stopped it and said, "Hang on a minute, my protective guard has slipped. Let me just put it back up, please." But she didn't even do that. I wonder... I hate to say this, and again, I'm not victim shaming, don't get me wrong. And I've always said, yes, I'm a true victim, but you can question me all day long, because at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, it's my word against my monsters, and I'm completely 100% in reality with that, don't get me wrong. With this, I wonder if it actually happened in the first place.
Well,
I do actually wonder if either Franco removed the plastic guard, or it slipped and she thought he removed the plastic guard, or it was never removed in the first place. Because this whole Time's Up era, this whole Me Too era, one thing that I've learned, and it's the one thing that really knocks my gears, is fake victimhood. I'm not saying she's a fake victim, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying now in general, people faking being victims, either because they're going to get something out of it, which is clout, attention, whatever, or it's somehow a hip thing to do, being part of the Me Too movement and saying, yeah, me too. Like, I don't know, but yeah, there you go. Well, I'll say it so you don't have to, Andy.
It gets weirder too, because again, it's just so frustrating, because this isn't victim blaming, because again, we have to ask questions, and this is now in the court of public opinion because you settled and you didn't see it through. So we're going to do it. Just like you're going to call out James Franco, we're all allowed to ask questions, because if someone did that to me, and I know I'm not supposed to compare, but it's like, I would never want to work with that guy again. If he's purposely doing this. But no, she then and her female co-stars were asked to appear topless in an unscripted scene, dance around Franco while wearing animal skulls atop their heads. One actress balked, was sent home the next day. So she did it. She now after this thing, she stuck around and did another one. I got in my head pretty quickly that, okay, you don't say no to this guy, she said. Another actress who participated in the schools confirmed her account of this unscripted sequence that led to the departure of an actress. She also confirmed the removal of the plastic guards. Franco's attorney said the allegations about the protective guards are not accurate. He also pointed to numerous social media posts by Tither Kaplan that reflected a positive experience on set. Tither Kaplan acknowledged those glowing remarks. She said she had been excited about making new friends during production and also wanted to promote her work on a notable project. Still, she said the negative experiences were red flags.
No, she can't have it both ways. No. BS. No, I'm calling BS on that. You cannot have it both ways. Either you were assaulted on set in front of numerous amount of people, right, which will overshadow everything. Every enjoyment that you've had, it would overshadow that. Or you had a cool time on set and your recollection isn't entirely accurate. Can't have it both ways. Because I tell you something, if I was assaulted like that in front of people, I would not be turning around and saying, well, I was assaulted, but you know what? There was some of the experiences were good. No, I'd be freaking mortified. I'd die inside because not only was I assaulted, I was assaulted in front of people that were physically there, that witnessed it, that didn't stop it, that didn't jump in and stop it. Because I wouldn't just go after James Franco. I'd go after every mofo that was there that was complicit in not. They were complicit in their silence and their inaction to stop the assault from happening in the first place. Or when the assault was taking place, they were complicit in their inaction to cut it freaking short. So why just go after James Franco? Why not the whole entire crew, the production company, everyone? Why? Why just James Franco? And why try and have it both ways, saying, you know, I was assaulted, it was evil. Oh, but by the way, some of the experiences were good. Sorry, that does not make sense to me. It doesn't.
Well, it's also frustrating because it's like, okay, these are the accusations why James Franco's canceled and he's the worst person. Okay, the scene asked for people to appear topless and dance around Franco while wearing animal skulls. The actress who wouldn't do it was sent home the next day.
Fine.
Why is it a bad thing? Like, I mean, you didn't want to do it, so good. You got sent home. The part required you to be topless. That happens in Hollywood movies. He was. I'm sorry. Why? What is the crime here, Steph?
Not too sure.
Lewis, what are the crimes I'm missing? I mean, this accusation is bad. Should have, but she didn't say anything, so she let that happen. And again, we have to empower people to be strong, to step up and be like, dude, don't fucking touch me there. Especially when people are around, you can call them out directly in their face and then prove it. Like, we got to empower people to stand up. This isn't victim. It's like, dude, say something. But no, this weird need to be famous in Hollywood will let them film orgy scenes and keep taking a step. At a certain point, you got to take some responsibility that, yeah, this was, I should have noticed this was all just a fucked up weird shit where I just kept agreeing to things that I shouldn't agree to. This is all consensual. It's frustrating. So this is what I keep reading this. I'm getting more and more frustrated. And then she's out on social media saying, what an amazing experience. Okay. Again, I still don't see a crime. I'm confused by. Go ahead, Seth.
One thing I want to add. Crystal F. Hey up, lads. How's it going? Nice to see you in the chat. She says, I disagree with Steph. Some people don't fully understand or feel the effects of the assault until later. 100% agree. Okay. I'm one of those people. All right. 1 2 years later, that once I started to learn about sex education, it hit me what happened to me, and I went completely off the rails. I understand that. However, this is years later, right, Crystal? She's not saying it was an awful experience, right? She's saying it's an awful experience. However, there were some parts that were all right. Don't you agree with me, Crystal, that bloody hell, you were assaulted on set in front of so many people that did nothing to stop it, right? Imagine the nightmares, the trauma, the thoughts that be going through your head even after that event, right? And then years later, right, You think back on the event. I know I'd turn around and say, that was an awful set. It was an awful experience because that happened to me and no one gave a shiz about me because whilst it was being assaulted in front of their very eyes on the freaking camera, it was being filmed. No one did anything to either stop it from happening or whilst it was happening, no one interjected and stopped it. And then that's it. Not say anything else. Here, what she's doing, which don't make sense to me, and maybe you can explain it in the chat, Hun, is she's saying both. She's saying it was an awful experience because this is what happened to me. But by the way, there were some experiences from the set that was okay, that were positive. No, that assault would overshadow everything for me. And nothing would have been good about it because everything would have been tainted. Because even if I'd made those friends on that set, even I'd be questioning them because they would have been around. If they were friends of mine, why didn't they interject? Why didn't they stop it from happening? I don't know.
Steph, I have a question for you, though.
Please, go for it.
Yeah, there's again, I always like revert back to films because, you know, art imitates life. The movie Split. Anya Taylor-Joy's character was abused, and there was a scene where she got, spoiler alert, got kidnapped, but she had a chance to get out of the situation, but she didn't, which was weird, right? But then I researched, and victims sometimes like they can't get out of situations. There's a word for it, and I don't know. I forgot what it was.
Stockholm syndrome.
I think that's it. So what if this person? I'm gonna take her side a little bit. Yeah. What if like that's kind of like some kind of alternate version of that is happening with this woman, and where maybe she's been abused before because unfortunately, you know, predators know who to prey on. You know, they're experts at that sometimes. You know, so maybe she froze, and those people. When I was reading up on it a few years ago, I was, why didn't she get away, right? And I found out about that syndrome. What's it called again?
Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome.
I found out that the people actually do find comfort in being with their abuser some weird way, and they feel like they can't get out, and they feel safer with them. Like it's really weird. So maybe this right here is an example of that in a way where he took off the cones or the protective plastics, and she froze. And also, you got to remember, people get really starstruck. This is James Franco. He's an A class. I mean, he's popular, man. I mean, he's really popular. It's like you could say The Rock and James Franco in a movie easy, you know. And it's like that stuff goes hand in hand. And it being in front of a lot of people, maybe it's like she froze. I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt here with this situation if it's being told correctly again. Because I do believe in taking it to, you know, find proof and stuff before.
I think the reality is everyone can be right because we're not the person and this, but where I think this gets muddier in these Hollywood situations as opposed to a regular workplace or some other thing. It's like you're filming sex scenes, right? It's like it's a completely different thing where it's like you're naked, you're exposed, you're acting, you're playing a different role. There's so much going on in this scene that does really actually, whether we want to acknowledge or not, complicates this scenario, right? It just does.
Rules.
Yeah, there are still rules, but there's still. Yeah, he should have taken the.
Ron Jeremy's in jail, bro. For a reason.
Let me be very clear. If there was a plastic thing that he took off that he wasn't supposed to take off, then that's fucked and wrong and illegal.
Yes.
And just so we're all clear, I think we're all in agreement that that's not okay. Okay, that's not okay. And maybe that's why he did settle. Who knows? We don't know. That's not okay. At the same time, like, we do need to empower people. I understand it's not easy for everyone to just have the strength or be like, oh my God, he took the thing off. But we need to start trying to empower. Like, say it, call it out so he doesn't do it to somebody else. Like,
correct. But she's
get
a kid.
It out there. Well, no,
right?
But it's just where I'm getting at is it's weirder in this scenario because she's been in like 3 nude projects with him. They're all getting sexualized. Who knows what the flirtation? The reason I bring this up, the reason I bring this back up is because in Hollywood it's weird. So here was another person who came forward, and this is again, all these situations are just more complicated than someone who just like out of nowhere starts doing things. So this is a woman that they had begun a romantic relationship, and then she was pressured into oral on him. He acted like an act she'd never done with him at that point while sitting in her car. I was talking to him. All of a sudden, his thing was out. I got really nervous. I said, "Can we do this later?" He kind of nudged my head down, and I didn't want him to hate me, so I did it. She began to perform the act, but was uncomfortable. To extricate herself from the situation, she told her someone was nearby. Franco's attorney denies these allegations. However, this woman and Franco later advanced their consensual sexual relationship and started dating. Today, she would have handled the situation differently, especially in the wake of Weinstein. I would say, no, stop, get out of my car. The power dynamic was off. And then she got a lot of flack. People were like, dude, how can you compare this? You were dating these allegations detract from criminal allegations. And she defended her rights, saying, well, no, I acknowledge that her story is complicated because of her consensual relationship. It's been hard to come forward about this. But I just share this because it's like another one. Like everything's just, it's complicated in this world with actors and filmmakers and the celebrity and Hollywood. In this situation, she shouldn't have had to feel pressured to perform that act. And if he sort of forced it in a way, that's bad. At the same time, she didn't say no. And so he's just, look, my take on all of this is like Franco seems to be a creep, complete creep who was totally getting all the women he wanted. And he didn't have any idea what his power imbalance was. As I go through all of these incidences, like again, as this one woman just also acknowledges she should have set up and said no. And I say it again, like I want to empower everybody to feel the strength of like, you got to say no. And especially if there's people around and you're in some Hollywood orgy scene that it's like, dude, excuse me, he took his, can you put say it loud. I'm sorry, James, can you put the plastic back on? Thank you. Like, that's all you got to do. And then he's going to do it. But the reality is like, don't keep working with people like that. Like we got to start realizing like that's the bad. If you notice this situation, your rise to fame and attention and acting and what you're going to do it at any cost to get the role and get your own attention. It's all muddies the waters of what's really going on here is what's frustrating about this case. And so when I'm going through all these things, it's clear James Franco was a creep. He was a creep who didn't understand power dynamics. He shouldn't have opened a school. He shouldn't have been offering parts. I don't want to give him a pass by any stretch of the imagination. But I do want to acknowledge he did cop to this in his interview to wrap things up and get it all the way around. There's nothing in here that like screams to me that he should be in jail is what the reality is, right? And so you can choose to not watch him again. You can choose to never support his movies again. Great. Now you have all the information. Use it as you will. At a certain point, I think he's allowed to move on and attempt to act and put himself back out there in the world again. And I do applaud his rawness and at least acknowledging some of this. I wish he'd be even more raw and acknowledge it, but in some of these instances, I don't really know how honest or what part of the story is true. He's denying it. They're saying it happened. There's no criminal charge. We're sort of at the point of like, all right, well, do you want to support him or not? Do you want to support the women? Do you want to support James? Go ahead, make your call. However, it does seem it's good he had a reckoning because it does seem like he was on a ledge that was only going to get worse. And so it was good that he was sort of exposed in a way to come to these self-reflections that he's acknowledging he needed to do. And sometimes you need to be pushed to get there. And so at a certain point, like I do encourage him to continue to better himself and learn how to be a better person, because at the end of the day, that's what we all deserve. And everyone deserves a chance to own up. The guy's paying $2.2 million to these women. So they agreed to something. They've gotten paid for their troubles. That's not going to take away the trauma that they've had. This really, in fact, happened. In no way does that. And clearly something went off. Done. Clearly something went off if he paid. Let's be fair, right? At the end of the day, like, you know.
I don't know.
Go ahead. Oh, you disagree.
I don't know. Well, this is a thing, and it's something that I've actually learned from you, Andy. Is don't assume, especially, you know, Michael Jackson, for example, when he paid off Jordan Chandler, everyone assumes he paid off Jordan Chandler because he did it and that was it. But his argument was, no, I paid off Jordan Chandler because, you know, I was advised just to get it out of the way. I didn't do it, but I just wanted to get him out of the way, not have to deal with legal stuff. Even though I was innocent, I'm going to pay him off. I just get rid. Just throw money at it just to get rid of the problem and do it that way. Perhaps it could have been this. Perhaps he paid him off and he is guilty. But there's only circumstantial evidence. There's no hard evidence to really prove if he actually did this or not. So I'm on fence.
I mean, he's acknowledging.
He's
acknowledging he slept with students. He's acknowledging he slept around. Like he's
correct.
Womanizing
consensually though.
Sleaze in theory, right? Like
yes,
that's
sleaze.
fair.
Yes, that is fair. And as I said before, I ain't giving him a free pass because he abused his position of power as a teacher, and he should get crucified for that all day long, regardless if it's consensual or not. He should have stayed well away from his students that way. End of. There's a line. You don't freaking cross it. However, assuming that he paid him off because he's guilty, I don't think he's right. He paid him off, but we don't know if he's guilty or not, would be more of an accurate, perhaps descriptive for that action that he took, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, look, I took a settlement, right? That does. But my point is, whoever usually pays is acknowledging something. Is I think a fair assumption when you see a settlement agreement. And that's just my take on things. Whenever I see someone settling, but okay, they didn't want to go through the hassles, or a lot of times the settlement also is just right. So is it cheaper to go to court or just to get this to go away? Is another sort of thing you could take away sometimes as well. However, you're acknowledging the settlement amount sort of depends. That $2.2 million is a lot. It's a lot of money. So. He
lost more than that.
And I suspect he feels like he did. Look, in this situation, like maybe there is just a little bit of both telling the story, right? Maybe he thought he was going method and she was into it and she didn't tell him no. And so he went there, right? And she didn't speak up. And therefore, that's what happened, right? And then he felt bad afterwards when he realized it. But it was, there might be a mid-ground here where everyone was sort of telling the truth in their own way and no one really realized. And that's the importance, again, of speaking up. Because if you don't say no, you can't read minds, and we don't actually know sometimes. And so it's important we really instill that. No means no. Say no. All that is incredibly imperative. And so I don't know. I don't know. So
no one's going to hire him, though, again. So he lost more than
I mean, and Seth Rogan is the biggest one. And so to wrap up, because I did a whole video, like I'm kind of frustrated with Seth Rogan. Because these two were tight, guys. These two were tight. Look at this, kind of tight. They recreated Kanye West's Bound 2 video. The whole 9, making out. It's a very funny video if you guys never saw it. These guys were close. Like, and Seth Rogan was even making jokes about all the underage girls that he was with. I don't believe he didn't realize that this guy was a, womanizing person. However, in reading through everything else, like, why didn't Seth Rogan... Do you guys agree with me? You can condemn a friend's actions, but still be there for them. Do you disagree with that logic?
Yeah, you could disagree with someone and like still have them as a friend.
Because Seth Rogan has come forward and was like, no, we're not working together. I'm really upset with him. Look, he's allowed to be upset with him, but there's sort of a way I feel like where I wish Seth Rogan, who is this close to James Franco, that they're making out on a bike. There's a certain point where you can be like, look, if someone asks you, what do you think about James Franco? You go, look, I don't like what he did, but he's my friend. And so I feel like I'm not really the person to ask right now. So no comment. Done. Over. You've addressed it.
It's fair.
You've stared loyal. You've condemned his actions. You're like, look, I'm not the person to ask. You have to ask him or somebody else.
Yeah, because
I'm his friend.
But the mall rejected hall monitors on Twitter will say, well, why are you still his friend? And then they'll cancel him. That's the way it is. That's probably what he's afraid of. James Franco made the mistake. Seth Rogan doesn't need to pay for it. It's James Franco's mistake. He probably ruined his career and stuff. And Seth Rogan still has a career. And
doesn't. Seth Rogan's getting so much flack these days. Everyone's sort of turning on him.
He's still, he's getting flack, but he's still trolling. He's still active and stuff. What, for the Christmas movie or whatnot? Well, in Hollywood, you fail up anyway. So if no one watches that Christmas movie, they'll just give him a contract to direct the next Superman.
Yeah, look, but I politics and all the bad whatever you want to make fun of Seth Rogan for, like, I'm just disappointed in him because it's like they were friends for 20 years. And why say anything to add more mudslinging to it? Of all the people out there that didn't need to add to it, it's him. Now, to be fair, James put him in the spotlight, and James created this problem. So it's James's responsibility. And it's annoying that Seth has to keep being asked, but Seth could have very easily, professionally, just completely punted the question to be like, yeah, we've been friends for 20 years. Puts me in a really weird spot. So I'm not going to comment on it. Done. You get over it and move on. And to me, that's a lesson we all need to learn. I know a lot of people who could have done the same thing back in 4 years ago in my case too. It's just a very simple thing to do, and I'm going to forever. It's like when you don't see that loyalty to your own friends, that's a scummy thing to see. Like, oh damn, I'm just disappointed in him. You know what I mean? I figured Seth. I don't blame Seth for anything James Franco did. I would have never blamed him or assumed it. But now I'm just like, really? You're going to cut him loose to save your own ass? Well, all right. Well, how much did you actually know?
You know what, man? Maybe James Franco called him and said, hey, you know what, man? This is my thing. Put me under the bus, Maybe, if I did something terrible, I would not take my friends down with me. I would be like, yo, I understand.
And if either of you, if I find out that one of you starts a school tomorrow and you created the school to sleep with your students, I am telling you now, I may condemn your actions, but I will still have your back, and I will publicly not be slinging mud at you, because that's just not what you do. Yeah. You don't go publicly sling mud at your friends. You are there for them. Now,
but he was asked.
There may come a point where you're like, all right, look, I'm trying to be here for you, friend, but you keep doing the wrong thing. I can't do it anymore. Then fine. Maybe that's where it got to. But I don't know. From a public, I wouldn't do that publicly ever, because it's just a bad look. If someone's turning on me and coming at me, then I'll fire back if I have to defend myself. But I find it really sad when I see this happens all the time in Hollywood, of just like, to save their own ass, they turn on whoever's close to them, and it's frustrating. There's still a lot to talk about, but I don't even know if I'm going to be able to trim this episode. I'm going to try and do it now. So that's a very long episode because we went through the whole thing. So subscribe to Steph the Alter Nerd. Subscribe to Nerd Report. We're going to wrap up in a minute. If you're still live, don't go anywhere. But I just wanted to do this because, my God, what's it, like an hour and a half, I think, if I trim the first 15 minutes? If you made it this far on the replay, say, I made it this far in the replay down in the comments below.